Good afternoon, everyone, and we hope you're all safe and sound and taking the necessary precautions. So, we welcome you all to the webinar for the CyberSec Code Black MDR to Rescue. Well, I'm Bharat Malik. I work on the business development team here at SISA and will be moderating this session today. So, quick facts about SISA. SISA is a global security specialist organization and a PCI QSA since the year 2006, having footprint in more than 35 countries. SISA is one of the approved payment forensic investigator and also one of the world's 20 organization to join PCI GARE committee as well. So here comes the question why we are doing this webinar today. So as SISA is one of the approved payment forensic investigator and due to the recent breach trends that we have been seeing across the globe, so we are taking this opportunity to create awareness among the community to what preventive actions can we take to avoid such incidents to occur. So I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Renju Varghese and Mr. Kaushik Pandey. So Renju is our Vice President Delivery at SISA. He is a PCI QSA and is a core payment forensic investigator as well. So Renju has been one of the lead investigator for payment data breaches, and he's also one of the key product owners for SISA EOT, which is an MDR solution that SISA has developed for payment infrastructure. Mr. Kaushik is our principal consultant at SISA and has handled several information security audits and has successfully implemented assessment programs at leading banks, third-party payment processors, BPOs, airlines, etc. He's also an authorized lead trainer for SISA's CPSI training program, which is a leading payment security training program for imparting the knowledge on the implementation front of the PCI DSS control, and also what a QSA can look out for a successful audit and certification from a compliance perspective. So before I hand over the platform to speakers, I have a few key housekeeping items to cover about the webinar platform today. So this session is going to be of 60 minutes, which includes the 5 minutes Q&A in between to address your queries. All the attendees will be muted automatically to have a smooth flow of the presentation. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can just submit through Q&A section, which is located below to your screen. Also, this session is a recorded session, which and a recorded version of this webinar will be available on YouTube page of SISA in the webinar section. So we all encourage everyone here to please feel free to ask as many questions as you have. So without any further delay, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming Mr. Renju and Kaushik. So over to you guys.
Thanks a lot, Bharat, for the kind introduction. And on the same note, we hope that all of you guys are safe and sound at home. We wish you, let's say, great health. All right. So on the same note, let's start today's session, today's webinar, because even today's webinar has been, you can say, let's say we have presented, let's say we are presenting today's webinar due to the fact, because of the challenges what you and me, all of us are facing every now and then, or let's say from the past, let's say 1 to 2 months, 3 months, due to which most of the organizations, most of our organizations have actually migrated to a work from home infrastructure, or let's say a work from home setup. So on that particular note, once we try to understand that once this particular, let's say, shift is happening from, let's say, from an office kind of a setup to, let's say, a remote working kind of, let's say, a setup, or let's say a particular type of practices, we see a lot of threats, lots of vulnerabilities happening around across all of us. So what are the remedial actions that we have to take in these cases, and which all different types of threats are there inside the market due to which we are currently being impacted so much? That will be the primary, you can say, objective of this particular session. Apart from that, we'll also be looking at a few of the, you can say, scenarios, real time scenarios, which the organizations, or let's say the world, is facing as of now. due to this COVID-19. And after that, we'll be discussing about the MDR solution, which is the managed detection and response. That okay, how exactly it works, and how exactly MDR solutions, or let's say an EDR solution, will be able to help us, or let's say help our organizations in making sure that they achieve that particular let's say security level which is required by them. Because with respect to these changing threat landscapes, I believe it's very important for us to keep ourselves updated with respect to the latest threats, latest vulnerabilities, whatever is happening across the market. And I believe many of us understand that there is no 100% security. And most of the times, prevention might not be possible if we are looking to, let's say, run our business day to day. So detection plays a major role. So that's why we'll be discussing about, let's say, MDR at a later point in time. Post which we will be discussing about a few of the general practices which are actually given by SISA, to make sure that yes, you, your organizations, and all those things are completely secure every day. All right. So on the same note, let's start this particular session. And one particular thing also which I would to you can say highlight, that after each and every session, or let's say after each and every section, once we have completed each and every section, we will be let's say taking some inputs from our co-speaker, Mr. Ranju, as well. Okay, who will be helping us understand that okay, how exactly things are happening in the real world scenario, in the investigations, in the let's say interactions which he's doing with different industry leaders every now and then. And after that, we'll be doing a small Q&A as well during the particular time period. Now, that particular Q&A will last for not more than 5 minutes, so that we can maintain the pace through which we have to complete the entire webinar. And if there are any questions which are still pending, which are still left and all, then you can always send us an email and we'll be happy to answer that. So on that particular note, let's start this particular session. So when we are talking about cybersecurity, when we are talking about the latest threats, the latest vulnerabilities, and all those things, whatever is happening across the globe, we do understand that we never get a pass, or let's say we never get actually a waiver from cybersecurity during these crises, or let's say during these challenging times. And that is the very reason why, if you will turn on any of the news, any of the blogs, anything whatsoever, you will see that the COVID-19 is covering around 24 hours of global news cycle. It's dominating 24 hours of global news cycle every day. The government leaders, the scientists, the health professionals worldwide are actually stating that okay, it's not just an epidemic, but it's a pandemic because of the global outreach. And due to the same challenges, due to the same comments from different, you can say, SME subject matter experts across the globe, organizations, the IT organizations, or even any organization whosoever wants to make sure that okay, their business is still continuing, they have switched to remote working facilities. Now, remote working facilities actually has been covered in our last webinar. If you guys want to have a look at it, you can go and see it on our website after this particular session is over. So remote working is something when you are giving the privilege, when you are giving the access to your employees to work from home. And that is considered as the new normal. Many of the organizations are actually using many digital means so as to make sure that the critical data is actually accessed based upon the CIA, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability principles during the remote working, you can say, process as well. And many at times, the data security over there means when I'm talking about data security over here, I'm talking about remote working environment. So in these particular cases, many at times it goes under question because tons of data gets transferred across a plethora of devices across n number of devices, due to which we are facing so much challenges with respect to usage of the personal devices, the personal emails as well, many a times, depending upon the size of the organization which we are catering to. The corporate assets are actually provisioned to support the remote working arrangements, and I guess many of you might acknowledge these facts. As many of the organizations, as they didn't had the laptops, they had to ship actually the desktops to the employees, to the work from home agents, and to the other personals inside the organization, because when the pandemic occurred at that time, even there was a shortage of laptops, or let's say the mobile computing devices in the market, due to which even these desktops were let's say used, or let's say were shipped across to let's say employees to their homes at that time. And the deployment and configuration of remote services, like let's say the corporate virtual private networks, two-factor authentication methods, and all those things are required to be implemented. Are we able to achieve it 100%? That is something which might be a question for us. Now, the cyber criminals, the hackers, the hacktivists, or whatever you want to say, are exploiting the fear and uncertainty of this particular crisis. They know that organizations like you and me, we were not prepared for such a pandemic to actually have occurred. And they are taking a huge, seriously, a huge advantage because of this. And that is the very reason why they are trying and using the best possible option they have. That is, they are using social engineering attacks, which are the easiest and the fastest. And the threat vectors which are used actually at that time spin up so fast, and the returns value are high as possible. Now, these type of attackers are targeting the work from home agents, their endpoint devices, with a variety of threats and the vulnerabilities, which we'll discuss in some time. And researches, which let's say we have seen, and we have done a research on our own as well, shows that there has been a huge spike in the phishing emails across the globe since the end of January 2020. And that is why you'll see that the spam email contributes to around 65.7% of threats which are actually happening across the globe right now, followed by malware, which takes on 26.8%, or roughly around 27%, and then the malicious URLs as well, which takes around 7.5% respect to the malicious domains and everything. So from that particular, you can say the stats from that particular, you can say background, we do try to, let's say, we are able to understand this particular primary factor, that endpoints, the agents, the people's computer, or let's say the people's system, the laptops, the desktops, whatever they might be using, play such a crucial role in today's world, because they will be receiving these spam emails, these let's say the BCs. So BC is known as actually the business email compromise scams, and all actually happens at their own desktop or laptop, through which many of the malwares are downloaded, many of the malicious URLs are actually they are getting redirected and all those things. So it becomes very crucial for all of us to acknowledge, to understand, and to address the current challenge, which is the security around the endpoints, or let's say which is the security around these remote working agents and the remote working people. So on these remote working people, the major threat actors which actually ponder around phishing, malwares, ransomwares, malicious domains, and BCs. So BCs, as I told you, is about the business email compromise scams, which we'll be discussing in some time. The phishing being one of the, we can say, the threat drivers across most of the compromises, which we'll see in some time, accounts for around 65% of threat contribution. Around 26% of this particular share is actually taken by malwares. Ransomware takes around 7.5% of the shares, and the other scams account for around 1.5%. So I guess all of us can understand that malwares, or let's say around the malwares, the phishing attacks, and all those things, play such a major threat actors when it comes to the security of all of our, let's say, work from home people, or say work from home agents, and all those things. What exactly is phishing? I know that that's a very general notion that okay, we know that what's a phishing, and exactly that's why the definition as well has been put down over here. That the malicious actors will just trend, let's say, will just pretend to be legitimate organizations in an effort to collect valuable personal information. But let's try to understand how exactly a phishing works. And this is a bit enhanced version, or let's say an advanced version of phishing. What will happen is that the particular attacker, or let's say the compromiser, will first of all get, let's say, an initial list of email accounts which he or she will be targeting on, and they will be pushing a few, or let's say a new versions, or let's say a few malwares on the CNC, the command control servers. Now, these attackers will actually send, or let's say these attackers will infect, first of all, the first victims. So when I'm talking about the first victims, it means that the end goal, the end objective is not to compromise these victims, but they're just being used as a bait to just being used as a bait to go back and actually see the or let's say get access to the industrial stakeholders, or let's say the stakeholders inside the organizations. And that's how, first of all, the infection or the compromise will happen for the first victims, which are the trusted by the high profile victims, like let's say somebody who is directly reporting to CEO, somebody who is directly reporting to CIO, something like that. And then these victims' account credentials will be exfiltrated and dropped to these CNC servers, which we also call as drop zones. So CNC servers are basically the command control servers in which they actually install the malwares. Now, based upon this particular exfiltration of the account credentials, we were able to find out that okay, these first victims have mail IDs, or let's say have access to which all high profile stakeholders. So more email account credentials were actually sent to the attackers. And then finally, these victim systems were actually used and were used to actually compromise the high profile victims. And then even that particular exfiltration happened. So as you guys might be knowing that phishing is something like, let's say you get a particular link in your email, you click on it, it looks like a legitimate website, you go on that, you enter the credentials, and then something happens at the back end. That is exactly how exactly phishing works. But over here, we are going one step further and we are telling you that inside an organization, how exactly it can work. Or let's say it might have worked in the recent past as well, based upon the incidents what you guys might have faced in the past. Now, all of these phishing, you can say, attempts, or let's say majority of these phishing attempts are actually driven by the spam email which you and me get every now and then. Now, what exactly are these spams? These spams are nothing but just an emails of false information, infectious malware, phishing messages, and everything actually in between, which actually gets along to your computer, gets along to your system, gets along to your endpoints, and infect those systems. Many a times, these systems are after, let's say, downloading a particular exe, or let's say downloading a particular malware, behave as a botnet as well. Many of times they are infected with a malware. Exploit kits are actually deployed over there. Many a time macros get executed on these systems, and then accordingly, let's say the data is exfiltrated. There are many things. But the driving factor over here are the spam emails. And that is what we saw earlier as well, that around 65.7, or let's say around 70% of the threat actors are actually driven through spam emails. And that is what can be seen over here with respect to the latest statistics, which says that around 199,379 spam emails have been received in the let's say in the last 2 or 3 months. And the top countries which have been targeted starts from United Kingdom to France to US. United Kingdom being the maximum at around 20.8%, and India is around 4.9% over there. These are the number of spam emails which we are getting every now and then. And based upon these spam emails, the number of spam emails which actually contains, let's say, a malicious file, or let's say the top countries with malicious file detections, start with United States, which actually detects around 26.6% of these. France comes at 12.2%. Brazil comes at 2.6%, and the others have at 20.5% over here, respectively. Now, that is the, you can say, the trend when it comes to, you can say, the phishing attacks and the spams and all these things being, or let's say, being sent out to the global domain, to let's say a world, to the entire world, to the world organizations, how exactly that has been distributed along the world as well, and how many actually were detected at the end of the day along with that. Next threat actor which we have is the malwares. Now, I guess malwares are something which all of us know, or let's say all of us understand that what exactly is the malware. So we have just put out a very sample, a very, you can say, a decent example over here. This starts from the same spam email which we just saw, as it actually was accounting to around 70% of the exfiltrations, or let's say the breaches that are happening across the globe. Now, that particular spam email might be containing a zip file. That particular zip file might, let's say, contains docs with known exploits. Now, that particular, you can say that particular exploit can be many. It means it's not mandatory that exploit will be one only. And that is what is being shown over here. That particular doc file actually contains 3 vulnerabilities with the different 3 CVE IDs as well. The second CVE ID we haven't mentioned over here, but there are 2 CVE IDs which we have mentioned. Now, these particular files are actually downloaded on a particular system, and it also opens a backdoor with a server which is hosting the final payload, and accordingly a system is compromised at the end of the day. When we talk about malware, we are talking about many types of malware. A few of them like a virus, I guess all of us know about that. The worms which spread automatically, the Trojan, which is actually behaves like a legitimate software, but it's not, it's malicious in nature. The rootkit, which actually hides within the PC, the spyware, which basically monitors the activities over there, the blended threat, which is the last scene, we also the last case which we just saw, where 2 or 3 exploits are actually sent out in that particular attachment in the same time, or let's say at the same time. Remote access, where the particular system, the PC or the laptop or desktop, will be controlled from a distance. The adware, where malicious feeds are actually sent to your system via the ads, different types of ads. The exploit kit. These are the different types of malwares which are actually available across the market, and one or the other, of course, we have come across the same. Then comes the ransomware, and one of the most interesting threat agents, threat vectors which we see in the market. And I guess all of us are quite aware about ransomware, where let's say a particular application, or let's say a particular, you can say an exe or particular script actually gets executed on your system. It might be your laptop, it might be your desktop, it might be your iPad, it might be your mobile phone as well. And that particular system gets encrypted. Now, after encryption, that particular attacker will be asking for some ransom from, let's say, from the victim to decrypt that particular, you can say, laptop or desktop or whatever things might be having. And that is what actually has been mentioned over here. But again, it's an enhanced version where, first of all, the attacker makes sure, or let's say identifies the victim, and make sure that, okay, which all websites he is, let's say, continuously going to. Accordingly, he goes to those websites and identifies a loophole, a vulnerability over there. He exploits that particular vulnerability, um, injects the code over there so that the user, like you and me, the user is actually redirected to a, let's say, the hackers or let's say the intruder's website, from which a binary file is actually downloaded onto the system because you think that okay, it's a legitimate website. So of course I can download any file. So you'll see that we are using phishing as well as a ransomware over here at the same time. So once that particular binary file is actually downloaded on your system, the encryption is negotiated, the data is encrypted, and then you get a ransom note that you have to pay, let's say, these many bitcoins, let's say, to that particular threat actor, or let's say that particular attacker, to gain access to your system again. So if you see, most of these attacks, what we just saw, as are actually driven by phishing emails. So 91% of cyber attacks, based upon our study, based upon the source which we have been identifying, that is the open source intelligence channels, 91% of cyber attacks are actually started with a phishing email. Out of which 27% actually were discovered by third parties, means third parties discovered it and told that, yes, let's say a breach has happened to your organization. 32.3% of those breaches actually used people as a means. And I guess all of us will acknowledge this particular fact that people are the weakest link when it comes to cybersecurity as well. 81% of these hacking related breaches leverage either stolen or weak passwords. It means that somebody or the other actually used unauthorized access to steal credentials and then installed unauthorized softwares. I guess that is one of the biggest reasons behind the breaches which are happening across the globe. That the credentials are first of all compromised, and then accordingly those systems are impacted. And that's how you will see the second stats which we have over here. It shows around 28 to 29% malwares are actually successfully infiltrate into your network via the email. Around so this particular value goes from 2007 and it goes till 2019 and 20. So if you see that in 2007 it was around roughly around 28-29%, and it went till let's say to around 70% at a later end of 2018 and 19. Similarly, the malwares that are infiltrated through the web account for around, let's say, 21% it started with, and it went again 70%. It went beyond 70% as well in the meantime. And through the instant messaging, it's nearly around 10% of the times when the malware has actually infiltrated through the instant messaging. So on that particular note, we'll be now interacting with our industry workforce, that is Ranju. We'll be asking him a few questions about the real world scenario, that how exactly let's say things work inside the industry, what will challenges he is let's say facing every now and then, so that we can understand his views around the same. So, Renju, the very first question which we would like to understand. First of all, thanks a lot for taking out time for us. I know you are a pretty busy guy, a lots and lots of things onto you. So the very first thing which we want to understand, and specifically from a basically from PFI perspective, because you had been the lead forensic investigators for all the breaches which SISA has been handling from the past 5 to 10 years. So do you think that phishing attacks have been the primary cause of breaches in the? Let's take the stats of the past 1 year. And can you just throw some light on that? That will be really helpful.
Sure, Kaushik, and good evening, everyone. So yes, phishing attacks have been one of the primary cause of the breaches that we have under investigation. We have released the SISA top 5 learnings of 2019, where we have covered the ingress points in detail part of it. So why the attackers have targeted the phishing as the one of the primary channel is because they have quite a lot of advantage with respect to phishing than directly exploiting a web app vulnerability or a vulnerability on your servers. One, they can definitely target the IT administrators and the support engineers, like the proper social engineering they do. They can concentrate and target the IT administrators and support engineers because they will have the admin credentials to most of the servers within the environment. Especially for the banking PFI cases that we have investigated uh, in the last year and still going, we have identified that in quite a lot of cases, I think more than 80% of cases, the interest point has been an IT administrator system and as well as a core banking operations team system. Because most of these systems or desktop will have direct access to the production. So that's one of the phishing patterns that we have observed. Also, phishing has been quite common these days because there's quite a lot of tools that we can impersonate a C-level or a senior management. So, as part of our red teaming that we actually do, we when we do a phishing campaign, we have a hit ratio of more than 90 percentage, where the client users actually have clicked or visited our phishing site. So still the learnings or the awareness that's been given to the users are still not up to mark as per our red teaming. So NOPFI actually support that case as well. In the phishing attacks, what we have observed is they basically deploy, most of the cases they deploy backdoors so that they can have access to the system and later point of time access another server for creating a persistent connection. And it's easier for a phishing attack because definitely most of the user systems will have vulnerable systems like for example an unpatched Adobe or a Office, etc. So it's easier for an intruder to do a targeted phishing attack, and they have a better hit ratio part. And in the current situation of work from home and the lack of infosec awareness on a continuous basis, I believe that all the users are vulnerable to a phishing attack, and intruders might start deploying backdoors on their systems. That's what I believe.
Thanks. Thanks a lot for that insight, Ranju. It's really helpful. So, can we say that it might be possible that we might have been, let's say, compromised and we might not know right now? Can we say that?
Yes, because if we actually do a red teaming right now, I'm sure that we'll get a 100% hit ratio. Because if you just imagine, like for example, the finance team, if you know our finance team, we do have quite a lot of posters there. Now just imagine they're sitting out there remotely working, and there's a targeted attack on their systems. Like for example, from a CEO, Darshan, there's targeted email that goes from by an intruder, impersonating Darshan and sending to say a finance manager. He may click on it because there is lack of awareness that is happening on a continuous basis. If in office we do have quite a lot of posters, we do have the domain, the wallpapers coming in, creating awareness. Right now, work from home environment, there's a lack of awareness. So that might be not just within SISA, but across the organizations, especially regular users who are not security aware.
Got it, Ranju. I guess the biggest learning over here is about the lack of the user awareness amongst the employees. And of course, many a times, I think what's happening is that as we, let's say, move to work from home, let's say, in a very short span of time. So I guess even the people who were not technological aware that much also were, let's say, are also facing a challenge and also the weakest link in the cyber security over here as well, because they might not know that okay, what to click, what not to click, and they have also the pressure that let's say the business as usual has to maintain. So quite an insightful thing over there. Thanks a lot for that. And last one more question over here, and then I will just request everybody, if you have any questions, you can just shoot us it at us, and if you can just answer this particular thing in brief, Raju. The spam emails which we saw, which I think as the trend micro, it accounts to around 70% across. Um, you can say the exfiltrations or the breaches across the global domain. So on that particular perspective, how do you think that it has impacted the global domain? And especially with respect to the malicious files, like exe, redirection to URLs, macros, malwares, etc. Do you do you have some insight about that, please?
Sure. I can give you insight based on the investigations that we have actually done, where the ingress that we identified are spamming, not spamming, but targeted phishing attacks. So in those set of cases, what we have observed is that we're not seeing .exe these days as part of the phishing emails. We are basically observing PDFs with a targeted malicious link for the users to click. Because when we analyzed most of the AV solutions these days and the spam filters do a very good job, even though not 100%, but do a good job. So the malicious intruders do know that, and that's the reason why what we observed is that they don't actually send an exe. That's gone these days, but still there might be. But the reason I'm just talking to based on our investigations and where we have observed targeted phishing attacks. We basically observed those PDFs where they have mentioned those links, which is definitely a malicious link, and have the users click on it. Why a PDF? Because definitely it's not doesn't have any malicious payload onto it, so the AAVs and spam filters actually doesn't flag it. And most of the solutions in the market don't actually check the links which is there in a PDF document, unless you do have a separate uh, you do have a separate checking option, like a black box kind of a environment. Most of the APIs doesn't reviews those links there. So here the hit ratio increases drastically because the intruders, because it's one of the techniques which we have observed in actual scenarios where the intruder is able to have a high hit ratio when they're doing a targeted phishing part of it. Then definitely there is the generic spamming where the intruder uses the old techniques of having the URLs in the mail bodies and the macros part of it. Oh, that is generally where they just send out a generic part of it. But in case of targeted attacks, the intruder likes to have a hit ratio of 95% or more. So we are observing they're using techniques which actually evades the endpoint protections.
Got it, Renju. So we have a few questions over here. The first one is that, okay, how to prevent from these types of phishing attacks and how exactly a SOC would be able to help. So I believe the mail gateway solutions and many of the firewalls with the latest antiviruses and everything might be able to help in these cases. But of course, we would like to understand from you as well, Renju, that, okay, how exactly a SOC solution will be able to help in such a case.
Sure. So here what we are observing is that most of the endpoint protections that is there definitely is able to identify. So again, going back to the statistics based on the investigations, we do have the endpoints identify the particular malwares or some of the backdoors that have been deployed. While 10% the endpoint solution is not able to identify, but at least 90% the endpoints are able to identify. But these endpoint solutions, unfortunately, just mention it as a malicious or suspicious, and the action taken by those endpoint solutions is no action taken. That means those particular malwares hasn't been deleted or quarantined per se. So definitely these informations are there in the logs part of it. So as part of the SOC part of it, can you identify those uh, malicious, those particular malwares where the endpoint solutions endpoint protection solutions hasn't been able to quarantine or delete and then take action, I think that will be a very good step per se.
Great, great. Thanks. Thanks a lot for that. Now we have a few questions. Any anti-malware protection software recommended? Actually, that this particular thing might not be the right forum to talk about any of the vendors. So whichever vendor will help you in protection across all of these different types of threats, I guess you can go ahead with that. So we'll keep a diplomatic answer for that. Then what are the measures to be taken while returning to office after the lockdown period? Now, that's a really good question which has been asked. So I believe once you're coming back, let's say to the office, do not connect your systems. That is, let's say your PCs and all directly to the critical production environment, which is let's say your data center or where your customers' infrastructure is there. First, make sure that a full scan is done of your systems. You have the latest antivirus signatures and everything is intact of your systems before you connect it to the production environment. Do you want to add something over here, Rinju?
Sure. I think we do have a section covering that after the as part of the last slides. But definitely, as Kaushik mentioned, we need to ensure that we before connecting to a corporate network, we actually do a deep scan of that particular system, and do a continuous monitoring of your network traffic and your DNS traffic per se. So that can be done at your network level, not at the endpoint part of it. Why you mentioned the network traffic and DNS? Because most of the backdoors which might be there on the user system will start communicating to the CNC server, and you can use your DNS logs and network logs to identify which system is communicating to these CNC systems and then take actions. So that's two methods that we suggest to be done once they are coming back to the network.
Great, great, awesome, Riju. We have a few more questions which are actually talking about the controls which have to be maintained at the endpoints. I guess we are covering those points later in the slide, so I will just park these questions as of now, and we'll move forward. And if the same questions are there in the let's at a later point in time as well, then we'll address it separately. So let's start it, and thanks a lot, Renju, for that insightful session. All right, so real-time case studies, the threats which we are facing. Now, these are real-time you can scenarios which most of the organizations are facing. The very first one over here, which you can see on the screen, is an email which is coming from Ministry of Health News. And they are giving you recommendations for prevention of COVID-19. And if you'll see, there's an attachment over there which says coronavirus latest update dot dat. Now that is something which is known as the malware, which we just discussed some time back. On the same time, we have like a few shipment agencies, like let's say people are, or let's say attackers are impersonating FedEx shipments and saying that, okay, now your shipment actually has been changed, or let's say it has been modified and all those things. So the new schedule has been, you can say, attached over here, which says shipping instructions, bill invoice, and all, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. And of course, that is again a malware, which is you can say being practiced right now. A few of the phishing emails looks like this, like there's a supposed vaccine. So this is basically going to Italy, or let's say this is a particular threat which we have seen for a domain specifically for Italy. And then we have a particular one which basically goes to Israel as well, as you can see, which are talking about the supposed vaccine for the COVID-19, or let's say the remedy for the COVID-19. And all of them actually have attachments along with that, which actually contains the malware. And I believe there was one of the most recent threats where there was a payload in the attachment, and that was specifically, I believe it was addressed to China and Italy. and it was Hawkeye Trojan. So I don't know how many of you are aware about the Hawkeye Trojan, but it's an information stealing Trojan. It has a highly obfuscated auto IT scripts, which are compiled actually into an exe. And after injecting the code, it actually changes itself to regservices.exe, post which it gets converted into a .NET executable, which is Confuser X. And the exfiltrated data is actually sent to various emails and the mail servers, which are actually configured over there. So these are a few scenarios which are actually, or these are a few cases which are happening across the globe right now as we speak. So please be aware about these things whenever it's happening. So on the same front, we have taken a particular case study which talks about, let's say, a particular threat agent, which is basically trying to say that, okay, they are from WHO, they are from World Health Organization, and it's going to Italy, or let's say it's going to that particular domain. Now, if you'll see over here, it's entirely in Italian. So whosoever, all of you know about Italian, you can just understand. Whosoever of you don't understand Italy. So what exactly they are saying over here is that they are just asking them that we have found out a remedy, we have found out a few we can say general practices around, and we have an attachment over here, and please download this particular attachment. It has been prepared by the WHO, the World Health Organization, and it contains the precautions against the infection. Now, over here, the attacker is actually compelling the user into downloading that particular .doc file. And when you open the doc file, it looks something like this. Now, over here, as you can see, it's an official office-looking template. It has no ifs and buts. You will not be able to even understand that, okay, it's a malicious file. And as soon as you enable the content over there, which is enabling the macros, it actually gets a connection to this particular public IP address, 45.128.134.14, which is actually a malicious URL. And at the back end, these many macros actually gets you can say triggered at the same time, which are auto open, extract token 2, hash set castle, and the others. Those of you who do not understand what exactly a macro is, so basically macro is very simple. It's just a series of common, you can say, used instructions or scripts and all, which are actually grouped together so that a particular redundant task is achieved at the end of the day. So that you don't have to type that particular thing, or let's say perform that particular execution every now and then. You can just run that particular macro, and of course that particular thing, or that particular activity, that particular task can be done. So, and these macros are basically written in Visual Basics for application scripts. So once, let's say the researchers actually tried and understand, or let's say understood this particular piece of code, they found that inside the code there were around 9,000 lines of obfuscation code, as you can see it on the right-hand side of the screen. And on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see the files which actually were the IOCs over there, like March 02/2020.jse, log.bat, and the others as well, which you'll see over here inside. So the actors behind this particular attack were basically the trig bots. I don't know how many of you know about the trig bots, but trig bots are actually a malware which steal the online banking information. And they came up with a very new, you can say, malware for this, which was PW Grab, which steals the credentials, and which credentials actually the autofill data. Your browser gives you a functionality of the autofill data. So actually they steal those credentials, the history from browsers, and of course the software application credentials as well. And this is one of the use cases which has recently happened and impacted most of, let's say, the Italy, or let's say the Italian agencies. Next, we have about the ransomware and about the malicious mobile applications. So if you'll see over here, we have a few of the mobile applications which are malicious in nature, and this also has been, you can say, filtered by Google as well, or let's say Android as well, like COVID, coronavirus status, coronavirus, COVID-19 alerts. Now these are actually nothing but ransomwares, or let's say malwares at the end of the day. And on the right-hand side of the screen, on the left-hand side of the screen, if you'll see, there's a ransomware attack on a particular system where they are saying that, okay, they have encrypted the entire hard drive. They are asking them to pay zero point 0.008 Bitcoin, and they have given the Bitcoin wallet address as well over there. And they are saying that, okay, please use this particular unique ID once you are paying us, so that accordingly we'll be able to decrypt your drive as well at the same time. And I guess on the same note, there was one more, I believe, a mobile threat. I think it was name was COVID lock. Now, it used to say that, okay, if you use a particular application, mobile application, it will give you the cures and the remedy around the COVID-19 and everything. But as soon as you give the application all the permissions after installing, of course, it used to just lock your entire mobile phone, and used to say that, okay, you have 48 hours, and they ask for around 100 USD Bitcoin in their Bitcoin wallet to actually decrypt your phone at the end of the day. So on the same note, let's go back to Renju to understand a few more threat scenarios, the real world threat scenarios, which are happening in the market. So Renju, do you think ransomware are here to stay, or will it be gone in 2 to 3 years? What exactly is your views on that?
Sure. The first ransomware that has been identified is in the year 1989. So I don't think ransomware is going to go anywhere. Because intruders are here to make money, and they're not just for the fun sake, just right. So I believe that ransomware is here to stay. And actually, if you analyze the ransomware part of it, the ransomware became prominent along with the popularity of the cryptocurrency. So these days, the intruder can target the most critical system in an environment and be assured of getting paid. It's much easier for the intruder to deploy a ransomware than sell a set of compromised card numbers, right? So what I believe is that we're going to see more of targeted ransomware attacks than just a common ransomware attack per se. Just imagine if an intruder is able to encrypt a bank's core banking system along with the one-day backup tapes, right? If you're able to encrypt that one-day backup as well as the core banking system, just imagine the ransom the intruder might ask. What I believe is that the intruders could have compromised most of the users' laptops with the backdoors, and they might be waiting for the users to connect back to the corporate network for creating a more persistent backdoor in the corporate environment, and then launch a new set of ransomware attack. So I believe once the lockdown is done, there will be another ransomware uh, attacks across the globe is what I foresee.
Great. Thanks a lot for that insight, Renju. And personally, I do believe that yes, ransomware is not going anywhere. All right. So I think that recently there have been a few breaches as well, and especially with respect to a few of the hospitality domains, I believe. So if I request you, I know that, okay, it might go into a diplomatic way as well, but if I request you to comment on the security controls which are actually put in place in these kinds of hospitality, you can say, organizations, based upon, of course, your recent, you can say, studies about the forensic breaches, what will you say about this?
Not just hospitality industry. I believe that currently all the sectors are vulnerable with the introduction of work from home, because no one has a plan for it, and the entire industry is evolving as we speak on how to do work from home, how to be secure, even questions like which solutions to be used for remote meetings. A lot of Zoom vulnerabilities that's been pointed out. So definitely, it's going to every industry is going to get impacted. But I believe that the travel and hospitality industry will be the most worst affected, not only just because of the COVID-19, because even after COVID-19, they will be really affected with the intrusion part of it. Just to give an example, as we currently speak, we do have two PFA investigations that we need to start for airline industry. Both the investigations actually has been stopped because the airline has ceased operation. So please note that these investigations came because of the breach that has happened in the month of Jan and Feb. So just imagine now what could have been happening to the hospitality industry right now. They'll be just because there's no IT teams to monitor, there's no infosec team to monitor their systems. So even a later point of time, they're going to come back. I believe that hospitality industry will be really badly affected.
Sure, thanks a lot for that, Ranju. We have a few of the questions over here in hand. The first one being different organizations have different workflow, absolutely, and very low digitization in specifically the insurance sector, I believe. So no IT auditing is basically done over there. And recently, I guess an IT regulation has been issued for IT auditing systems. And in this regard, it's a very high risk of cybersecurity in developing countries. Now, for the time being, how measures for the insurance regulators, I guess, should come up for protecting the cybersecurity related issues in insurance sector? So all of these cybersecurity issues, of course, start from two aspects. First of all, the policy adherence inside the organization. The second is, of course, the detection and the prevention solutions which you will be implementing. So when I'm talking about the policy, I'm talking basically about the guidelines. So one particular guideline, which I guess most of the organizations right now, most of the banking sectors right now are using is the NIST cybersecurity framework. I guess that's a really good service, or let's say framework, which has been designed by NIST, which takes care of all the domains of information security, keeping under mind that okay, the business is never impacted at the end of the day. And when it comes to the technical solutions, absolutely, you will be having like if you will be having the remote agents or the remote people, then the VPN solutions, the different endpoint solution, which we'll be discussing in some time as well, will also play a crucial role. Uh, that will be from my end. Renju, do you want to comment on this?
Sure. So I think most of the regulators will definitely will be coming out with their own standards. Actually, right now as we speak, we are also working with the certain part of it. Certain has asked for our recommendation on what is the best practices to be considered for during the work from home scenario. So most of the IT regulators will definitely going to come in. So if there's any specific help required, then we can definitely take it up.
Sure, Angel. Thanks a lot for that. Next question is for the firewall management console perspective. That if we are working from home, that how exactly the access control has to be managed. So I believe how exactly it can be best managed is that we are using the VPN connections, the VPN certificates from your systems. Apart from that, if you have a Citrix VDI kind of a setup, then it's best that you use a Citrix VDI rather than just you can say. Let's say broadcasting your public IP address on the firewall on the web, something like that. I guess that will be the best use case over here. And the details about this actually you can find in our last webinar, the work from home one, where we have addressed all these things. Um, uh, Rinju, do you have any comments on?
Sure. And the only question is that ensure that we have multi-factor authentication enabled and ensure that the multi-factor authentication is an out of band. That is either a SMS and not an email part of it. Because we're just recently observing a new set of malware which basically is able to get the code from the emails part of it. So just keep a note on the multi-factor authentication that you're going to deploy. You need to have it in out of band.
Great, awesome. So for all these types of scenarios, the let's say the two-factor authentication, the multi-factor authentication plays a crucial role. We'll park the questions over here, and we'll answer it once we have covered the next section, so that we are able to maintain the time as well over here. So thanks a lot for that, Ranju. So now let's discuss about MDR, the managed detection and response, which is there to rescue us from things. Yeah. So what exactly is MDR? MDR is basically a managed detection and response architecture, which makes sure that the following points, let's say the following key areas are addressed. Let's start with the security research. The security research is basically, let's say, the different signatures which are actually, you can say, identified across the globe with respect to the different threats, different vulnerabilities which are arising every day, day by day. It can be subscribed from, let's say, different industry best practices like, let's say, NIST and the CVIDs and the others. And many a times organizations are also doing their own R&D and coming up with their solutions. Then it comes to security operations, where the security operations center are set up. The security engineering team makes sure that, let's say, the MDR solutions are up and running within no time. The forensics background plays a crucial role, because not all the threats might be detected. So it needs to go through a deep dive forensic analysis, so that, let's say, these types of threats are actually accounted for, and later signatures are developed for these types of threats, so that the other organizations are not impacted because of this. Security analysis and data science plays a crucial role, the threat hunting and the incident response on the same. How exactly this MDR solution works is that, first of all, any organization whosoever has implemented malware detection and response will, first of all, will be getting all the logs, all the alerts, or let's say all the things from the different, you can say, sources. Now, these different sources can be the remote access, the IAM, the identity access management, your next gen firewalls, the SIM solutions, the DLPs, the AV, the antiviruses, and everything. Now, these you can say events can be coming in the form of the log, or it can be coming in the form of alerts, or let's say queries, or let's say the artificial intelligence, the AIs and the queries. Now, all of these alerts, all of these logs, all of these events will be actually pushed to the correlation technology, the correlation engine, what we call. Now, in the correlation engine, you will be having various signatures, various policies, which has to be triggered once these particular logs are actually gone over there. And they also need to make sure that the artificial intelligence, the machine learning is also utilized at the end of the day, so that the unknown attacks are also identified. Now, based upon the same, the let's say the threats or the vulnerabilities, or let's say the particular scenario will be identified. Uh, in the tier two, the response will be formulated, and then the incident handlers will be actually contacting the client so as to make sure that these types of threats, these types of vulnerabilities are addressed as quickly as possible. Now, that is how exactly an MDR, a managed detection and response solution works. Now, once, let's say, these MDR, or let's say the managed detection and response solutions were actually working, the organizations saw that MDR might not be able to help us completely. The reason being is, I will explain this with with the scenario of one of the hacks which happened in the Saudi Arabia. Recently, they got hit by a malware known as Shamoon, and actually that attacked the General Authority of Civil Aviation over there. Previously, this particular you can say malware actually impacted Aramco. I guess all of us might be aware about Aramco, which basically wiped around 35,000 computers. Now, in this particular case, what happened is that most of the organizations think that, okay, virtually every organization makes sure that, okay, their perimeter defense is as secure as possible. But at the end, we all acknowledge the fact that 100% prevention is not possible. And that's where your endpoint protection platform and the EDR, the endpoint detection and response, comes into picture. So on an annual average, around $500 billion actually is the total cost of the successful attacks. Means the exfiltration, the breaches, and all those things, whatever is happening, is around $500 billion plus. And organizations are spending around $12 billion plus for prevention. And they are trying to implement many of the technologies over there. What's the problem? The problem is the visibility. The organizations say that around 87% of the organizations have no visibility of the kernel level. 86% have no idea about the cloud repositories. 81% have no idea about the anomalous behavior, and 78% have no idea about the IOCs, the indicators of compromise. So visibility is a major gap over here. And all of these different types of threats and all are actually happening based upon your and mine system, the desktops and the laptops. Now, these desktops and laptops, how exactly they get infected? They get infected, let's say, by the USBs. They might get impacted via the lateral movement. That, okay, some other system might have been compromised and you were in the same network, so you also got compromised. And this actually leads to, you can say, most of the breaches what are happening across the world. So threat actors, what exactly are threat actors over here? The threat actors are actually the USB devices, the phishing attacks and the ransomware, the cloud endpoints, the encrypted data, because you have no idea what exactly is inside the encrypted data, right? The polymorphic malwares. Now, what is polymorphic malware? It's a malware which keeps changing its signature, keeps changing its hash. So your antivirus agent, or let's say your EDR solution, actually not the EDR, but the antivirus agent won't be able to find out these types of polymorphic malwares, and the rogue user accounts as well, the remote access tools and everything. Now, these types of malwares are actually not detected by the typical, you can say, by the typical SOC solution and the different solutions, the SIM solution which you have in hand. And that's where the EDR comes in the picture. So in the case of EDR, the endpoint sensors will be deployed across most of the desktops and the laptops which you have inside the organization. Specifically, let's say the PR team, the marketing team, the finance team, and all those things. And all of these logs, all of these events will be pushed to the threat intelligence, or let's say to your EDR solution. Now, over there, there'll be real-time behavior analytics, which will be performed, the big data analytics as well, along with the reputation analytics. Now, based upon the signature, based upon the anomaly which they have identified, they'll be raising an alarm. And there will be a rapid detection center, which will be with EDR vendor, where the threat analysis, the incident responders, and the forensic experts will be sitting. And in not more than 30 minutes, the alert will be raised to the cybersecurity incident response team inside the organization to make sure that, okay, these types of attackers or these types of threat vectors are actually identified and made sure that, yes, they are caught as well at the end of the day. So on that particular note, I would like to again request Renju's comment on understanding about the MDR and the EDR solution. That how exactly MDR and EDR solution will be able to help us in prevention from phishing, ransomware, malware, spam, etc.
Sure. So, it depends on the MDR and EDR solution which has been deployed across. So, these EDR solutions do have quite a lot of capabilities. One is definitely, as earlier AV has mentioned, they'll be able to scan the systems, identify any files, check the empty files, etc., which every AV solutions do have. The other point in the EDR solutions is that they basically are monitoring the network packages being going out, and especially the DNS queries which being sent out. Because one thing I have to notice, Kaushik, here is that most of the malware, which is basically if it's a backdoor and as a communicated to CNC, do send a beam request out for connecting to those CNC servers. So ZDS Solutions basically monitors those network packets, and based on the DNS request and sort of parameters which we actually have, we'll be able to identify whether the system is communicating to a malicious, and go in depth to identify which process miscommunicating and identifies the DLLs and resting. So it's a complex of multiple scenarios. How it is helps in ransomware attacks and everything is basically because it's able to keep on observing the process part of it. So before a ransomware is able to get executed, it's able to detect which process and kill that process on a real-time basis. With respect to a communication backdoor kind of a stuff, if that particular endpoint is infected and is that particular endpoint is trying to communicate outside to a CNC server, then because it monitors the network packets, it's able to identify the DNS request and based on the domain name which is being called upon, they run the algos and able to identify whether it is a CNC or whether it is malicious, and then definitely go ahead and identify which process which has been executed, which file, and etc. etc. Why an EDR or MDR plays a very crucial role when compared to your standalone AV solutions is your AV solutions, most AV solutions rely heavily on process executed and the files and the signature patterns, while these solutions, apart from the the traditional AV solutions, they also have these additional measures to be taken to identify. But having said that, the EDR and MDR solutions may not give you 100% positive. There has been a reported case of a lot of false positives being reported as well because of the algo part. But there's a good hit ratio. We're able to prevent it. Having said that, now because of the certain scenario, I think most of you cannot change to an EDR solution right away. But what you can do is, can you, from your existing AV solutions or endpoint protection has been deployed in your environment, can you get the logs and start monitoring those logs? Because that will give you quite a lot of information. Because based on our PFI investigations, the current set of AV solutions is definitely able to identify quite a lot of malwares which are present, but they may not be able to quarantine or delete it properly. So if you have your solutions able to, if you're able to monitor and identify those user systems, then definitely you can have a much, you can definitely have a much head start on preventing any breaches once they connect back.
Understood, Ranju. So I believe the DNS logs play a major role over here for the identification of all of these different types of threats and vulnerabilities which we are talking about.
That's right, Kaushik.
Great. Thanks a lot for that. So let's take a few questions over here. The notes actually, okay, so there's somebody who's asking that, okay, will there be notes that is going to be shared? So these slides will be shared, and accordingly you can get a hang of the video as well, which will contain all of the, let's say, the session recordings which we are doing today. Then somebody has asked that, okay, last week there was news of Zoom being on hackers' radar. Now, we cannot comment on a third-party software that, okay, is it safe or not, but we make sure that the latest patches, the latest security patches are up and running. And that particular thing might be with a different security vendors, not just Zoom. However, I think, or let's say we think that right now Zoom is more in highlight because most of the organizations are using it. So I guess that's going as a marketing strategy as well for them. But yes, I believe Zoom as of now is safe enough based upon the patches which they have released. But can we assure that? No, we won't be able to assure that. The next question we have is that insurance regulators should come up to avoid cyber security related risk. So I guess if we can connect later, then we might be able to answer this particular question because I think the questions are not clear. Yeah, Renju, you want to answer?
No, I think we can connect later and then cover
Yep,
that.
exactly. So the next question over here is that how to prevent my system or server from Bitcoin other than mail not open. So Basically, Bitcoin is not a vulnerability as such. Bitcoin is the currency which they are basically asking for. However, your system or server can be, you can say, secured from the different types of phishing and the different types of malwares based upon the solution what Renju just now said. And in some time, we'll be discussing about the other measures as well, which we have, you can say, documented for you guys. Recommendation from your end on prevention parameters while using remote VPN and remote conferencing session through Zoom, Skype, etc. Uh, Prevention parameters will be that whenever, let's say, first of all, use your organization's laptop only at all the times. And whenever you are doing any of these types of session, make sure that your applications are patched with the latest patch that is available from that particular vendor. And always connect your systems via the VPN connections. Even if you are going to, let's say, over a Zoom session with the customer. Why am I saying this? Because once you connect to the VPN, or let's say to your corporate infrastructure, all of the logs, all of the technology, everything becomes active. Your MDR solution, your other solutions which are there becomes active. And then if there is an event, if there is a particular vulnerability or let's say a threat actor, it will be quickly identified by that. So that is something which I would recommend. Renju, you want to add over there?
No, that's fine, Kaushik.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for that. Considering recent hike in attacks, where does India stand in the cybersecurity breaches and controls? I guess we have what it takes, the technological platforms, the technological controls. We do have it, and I guess we had been, means the Indians had been the brain in coming up with the, let's say, the new signatures and the new you can say threat related policies and all those things across the globe, not just in India. However, I guess the initiatives which has been taken by the government in making sure that let's say multi-factor authentication is being used whenever we are doing a financial transactions, the OTPs and all those things are secure measures. It's just one particular glitch that might or might not happen that we'll see in the future is implementation. So the security controls are there, the policies are there. The implementation is something which will vary based upon the load which or the load of the traffic which let's say these types of technologies, the servers and the institutions are getting. So this particular answer will vary based upon the technological implementation of that. Please share the session's content receiving URLs. Okay, we'll be sharing the session. Any idea while doing risk assessment while work from home? Key points. So those key points we have already shared in our last webinar. You can get a copy of it from our website. We have it over there. Then work from home has raised numerous privacy issues. What's your take? Absolutely, there will be privacy issues when we are doing work from home. The policy level controls are the you can say uh, will be the gambit of the entire privacy issues over here. Why am I saying this is because the systems, the laptops or desktops are something which you or let's say which me can control from an organization perspective, but I cannot control the work environment in which they are working. The policy, the let's say the attestations which you are getting from those users, those work from home people, plays a major role in these types of circumstances. Other controls which can be there on your let's say desktops and laptops can be the print screen and all those things disabled and everything. But again, the particular physical premises is not under your control. So the trust which you have on them, the awareness, how much awareness you are giving to them, and what exactly attestation you are taking from them, that plays a major role over here. So that is how exactly the privacy issues will be, you can say, addressed in this particular case. So from that, I guess we have covered these, let's say, the slides, and there comes the mitigation, or let's say the measures which we suggest. So we request all of you to stay more vigilant against the emails from untrusted sources, as we have seen coming from the GOV UK and the others. Um, Adhering to security best practices is something which has to be in the DNA. Considering the surge in the remote working numbers, actually is something which we have seen. It's on a spike. So you should make sure that your educational security programs, your educational awareness trainings, and all those things are actually updated with respect to the latest threats from the remote working agents, the remote working practices, and everything. Please do not use the same awareness trainings which you had been using from the past 4 to 5 years, because that might not help in this particular case. You should implement the VPNs, the virtual private connections. Nothing is 100% secure, nothing is 100% security proof, but the VPN provides you, let's say, helps you to reduce the vulnerability, the threats to a certain level, which is quite acceptable by most of the organizations. So that is something which we'll suggest to the organizations, along with the secure email gateway solutions. And of course, you should have a BCP and DR plans in the same. A few of the cybersecurity best practices that you should have a current cybersecurity policies inside your organization, which should include the work from home practices. Why are we saying so? Because the work from home was not a normal part of your information security policy till now. Now, I guess this is the good time to actually update your infosec policies, your cybersecurity policies, and communicate to all the relevant stakeholders. The BYOD policy is something which you have to say a yes or no right now, basis upon the exposure of the confidential information about the privacy information which you are giving to the users. You might allow them to use their own local laptops or desktops, depending upon the bring your own device policies, where you can just set up, let's say, a separate drive, or let's say a separate virtualized operating system on top of, let's say, that particular hardware, and can give access to them. Or otherwise, give your own laptop or desktop based upon the asset sizing which you have. Please make sure that the unsafe Wi-Fi networks are not used. They should be there inside your attestation as well. Once you are getting this, let's say, physical attestation from the employees who are working from home. Again, I will say that this is something which you can get only from the physical attestation, because you won't be able to monitor if they are using unsafe Wi-Fi networks or not. Many of the organizations are taking an advantage and saying that, okay, we have the right to audit. When I say right to audit, means they can go to that particular premises, which in current circumstances is not possible. So what exactly organizations are tending to do is that they are doing video calls so as to understand that, okay, how exactly the work environment looks like, the table on which they are working and everything. Does it have any mobile phones and all those things? The continued awareness is very much necessary right now across the, let's say, gambit, for the very same fact, because each and every day we are seeing different threat actors, different threat vectors, different cybersecurity malpractices being, you can say, done. So it's very important that your employees as well are aware about, let's say, all these things. And the crisis management incident response plan becomes a very important, you can say, criteria over here, and especially by the remote workforce employees, because now even your cybersecurity incident response team might not be there inside your premises. So maybe you need to perform a separate training for them, a separate awareness session for them, maybe update their roles and responsibilities, so that, let's say, they you can say response within the RTO and the RPO what your organization has documented. One particular suggestion which goes from our end is that please do, let's say, at least a tabletop testing right now, so that different, you can say, internal stakeholders who are responsible to make sure that the cybersecurity posture of your organization maintain at the end of the day, know about their roles and responsibilities, how soon they have to respond, and they will also be able to tell what are the challenges they might face in these situations, so that you will be able to address the same. So SISA will be actually releasing the top 5 learning report from 2019 and 20 based upon the PFI investigation by the end of this month. The same. So on that particular note, I guess we'll just wrap up. If you guys have any further questions, then you can just send out an email to us, and we'll be happy to help. You can use the same email IDs through which you have got the, you can say, these invitations. You can use the same email ID, or you can post any of your comments or queries on our website as well. So thanks a lot, team, for attending this, and have a very nice day. Bye bye.